What's going on, guys? I'm here today with Daniel. This is the Rich20Something podcast. I'm Brad Hart from Make More Marbles, and we're going to get underway right now. Daniel, tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
This is the Rich20Something podcast with Daniel D. Piazza.
All right, man. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate you, brother. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much, man. It's a beautiful rainy day here in LA, and Lord knows we need some rain here in LA.
But you know what? I think I have, I don't know if we talked about this when we met last week, but I think I have, what is it called? Sad seasonally affected depression or depressive
Sad,
disorder?
right? Seasonal affective disorder. Could also be the standard American diet, which affects a lot of people too.
No, but I mean, I get genuinely sad when it rains or is gloomy, which is why I moved here, and for the past week it's been gloomy.
Yeah.
And then I have friends in New York who are like, it's warmer here.
Yeah,
I'm like,
barely.
Fuck you guys, you know?
I've been pretty fortunate. I've been in Orange County where it's been nice. I've been in Florida before that. I was in Marco Island. Yeah. Super fun. It's been like 75, 80 degree weather. I've been in the ocean a ton. You can't tell by the natural color, my pallor, if you will.
Do you burn or do you tan?
I have two colors, white and red. Take your pick. And if you choke me, maybe I'll turn blue. So I'm very, very American colors. That's about all I get.
Where's your family from?
I'm from Long Island originally.
Cool.
Where most Guidos and assholes are from.
Nice.
Typically.
Of course.
My buddy John Roman, whose book I brought you today, is actually from there as well. So that's pretty cool.
Is he a Guido or an asshole?
He's kind of both sometimes, depending on when you catch him.
Can't wait to meet you, John.
No, John is awesome. He's a rock star. I love him to death. And I've had like 60 of my friends and I have done that book. It's been really awesome. So, he lives in Santa Monica, and we all kind of made the pilgrimage to LA.
Everyone does.
All these New Yorkers are now descending on Los Angeles and Orange County. So it's been kind of interesting to come to a place where you've never been before.
Yeah.
And then have your whole tribe be there as well.
Yeah. That's, it's kind of like expats going to another country, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, you told me that you just came back from Costa Rica.
That's right.
And there's a lot of expats there, too.
Yeah, so Costa Rica is actually really cool. I stayed at this 65-acre mango farm that a couple of friends of mine from Brooklyn own. It's called Puerta La Vida. You can check it out, puertavida.com. And it basically, is this entire compound that they're building out. It's going to be a longevity center, a health and wellness center, a community center. They're going to have retreats down there. I was down there for what's called the Do Lectures. And the Do Lectures are like, take all the heavy hitters you can find and put them in one room. So there's 100 of us there kind of sharing our knowledge with each other out in the middle of this beautiful jungle rainforest. We had days on the beach. We had days just kind of hanging out while it rained underneath the canopies. We had howler monkeys. We had dogs running around. We had like fun, yoga and meditative stuff was going on. It was pretty amazing actually because you're right by the ocean. You've got the mountains in the background. You've got the jungles, the waterfalls, literally anything you could possibly think of in nature is in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And the country is completely sustainable energy right now. There's no fossil fuels being burned for energy for the country.
The whole country?
As far as I know, that's what I hear. Yeah. So that's wild. And then there's no standing army in Costa Rica either. So it's kind of like they really laid back. They had this, this Vida lifestyle, pura vida, like the good life.
Yeah.
And I'm actually building a house down there.
That's. I mean, I go there a few times a year. I go like 2-3 times a year, and I always come back feeling rejuvenated. I always come back feeling better. You guys should go too. If you have a chance to go, you should go. It's not an expensive trip.
Nope.
It's depending on where you're going, especially if you're coming from the East Coast. Very quick trip.
Very quick. You go to Miami and then you pop into San Jose, and then it's about an hour to where I stayed. And I can hook you guys up if you want to email me. It's just Brad at Make More Marbles. I can link you up with the people that own the plantation down there, the 65-acre mango farm. It's really cool. It's worth checking out.
It's super fun. I feel like Costa Rica is a trendy place for entrepreneurs now too.
Totally.
It's very
Yeah, there's a couple. There's Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah.
There's Costa Rica. A few places in Europe are really picking up again. But anywhere that's cheap and relatively convenient to the United States, I think you're going to find a lot of expats.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And kind of speaking of the whole entrepreneur crew, this is a good time to talk to you, right? And this is the reason why I wanted to talk to you right now. If you guys are watching this when it comes out, it will be the beginning of 2016, but this is an evergreen, all-important topic.
Absolutely.
I wanted you to come here today because part of your focus, especially with your online presence, is helping people get their financial house in order, like getting their shit together.
Yeah.
Right? And this is important for young people, of course, and we have a lot of younger people watching this in the 20 to 35. But you just turned 30, right?
Yeah, I'm not a 20-something anymore, guys. Barely. This August I turned 30.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And but you know what I think is even more interesting than the fact that a lot of young people have trouble getting their financial house in order. I think it's more interesting that habits about finances are so deeply ingrained that you can go your entire life and not get your shit together. And I was just talking to some people in my family recently, and I'm like, man, this is a serious like, it's a serious I don't want to say like a disease, but
but it's insidious for sure.
It's insidious. That's
and
what
the
I meant
longer
to
you
say.
wait, the worse it is.
Yeah. So
right? If you get started at 20 versus 25 versus 30, I mean, you're talking about compound interest. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you're talking about retiring maybe 20 years later as a result of waiting a few years now.
Well, let's bring it back to like the root of the problem. Why doesn't the average American have any financial knowledge, and why don't they have their shit together, generally speaking?
I think it's really education. It comes down to, we have a very outdated industrial age educational model that doesn't teach anything about finance. I mean, it does at like a very high macro and microeconomics level, but as far as the personal finances of the people, they're basically training workers, right? They're training people who can go into a job and turn a crank on whatever machine and clock in, clock out, and they show up on time and they go home on time, and they don't ask too many questions. They don't really think too much critically for themselves, and they're not really teaching people to solve problems, to add more value, which is the basis of all economics, right? It's not a perfect system, but it's definitely a very high correlation between people who add lots of value and people who make lots of money.
Right.
The wealthiest people in the world add the most value for the most people. It's a pretty simple equation. It's not perfect, again, but it's pretty highly correlated. And then the second part is, you have so many people going through the system, and they're just never taught because there's no real financial, there's two pieces. The people who are teaching and making the curriculums are teachers and educators, right? They're not wealthy, capitalists.
I always found that
they're
interesting.
Not industrialists.
The MBA teachers have never started a business. You're like, what?
Sometimes they have.
Sometimes
right?
they
And
have.
I'm not trying to paint them all with the same brush. Some of them are extremely competent. Like, for example, my buddy Mike, he just published a book. He's a partner at Deloitte. He's actually run several businesses within Deloitte, and he also teaches at UCI. So you get the ones that really know their stuff, and they can teach you from experience, which is ideally where you want to go. But if the average teacher is just teaching you about, first of all, they don't have like a personal finance curriculum, right? But secondary to that, they just don't know, right?
Yeah.
They don't really have the tried and true wisdom of the Warren Buffetts, the Ben Grahams, take your pick, who would be like a good example of somebody today who might have a really strong handle on finance, maybe a Ramit Sethi or Tim Ferriss or something like that. Somebody who does a lot of angel investing, and there's plenty of ways to add value and therefore make money. But I think investing principles are actually fairly straightforward and relatively boring, which is what eludes a lot of people, because they're all looking for the quick fix. They're all looking for that magic bullet that's going to create wealth for an eternity. And a lot of them have the idea that it's a single one shot. I got to make this company happen and make $1 billion, right? And that's one way to make a lot of money, but it's such a low probability event. Even if you do everything right, there's just so many variables that come into it. I mean, for every Mark Zuckerberg, there's 10,000 people who tried to be Mark Zuckerberg.
For sure.
And some of them were hella successful at it, but a lot of them just, you never heard their names. And even Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure, had to fail a ton of times, and times you never heard of, just to get to that place.
Well, I wanted to interject there because I think something that's really important that most people skip over, and this isn't just a young person thing, it's a human thing. We hate being bored. We don't want to do anything that for any amount of time makes us feel like we're not excited.
Right.
And so what that means is that if we do something that is supposed to help us, but we get to a point where it's past the initial discovery, and now we have to get into that nitty gritty of actually committing to the work consistently before we see a result, a lot of times we drop it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as reading a book. You pick up a book, and I don't know John yet, but you look at a book like this, something that's going to help you, Engineering the Alpha.
Which is a great book. I recommend it highly, guys. 60 of my friends have created their awesome bodies and everything with that.
This is gonna help you, and thank you for the inscription, by the way.
My pleasure.
This is gonna help you to get your body together, and you're like, yes, I want to have a great body and sane sex and unreal life. And so you start reading this book and you're like, oh man, this seems like a lot of work. Also, the book is almost 300 pages. Like, I'll do it later.
Yep.
And then you just don't do it. And then you don't get any of these results.
Yep.
Because you got a little bit bored.
And even if you read the book, it doesn't mean you're actually going to apply it.
Right. I think that there's something to be said about developing a skill for learning complex concepts and for remaining consistent with an objective long after it's no longer exciting.
Right. And that's why I'm a big fan of what I recommend is, like, again, principles to create wealth are relatively boring. I mean, it's diversify, put more money in the machine than you're spending, right? Yeah. And it should be relatively easy. And you should only really look at it maybe every 6 months or every year, right? And it should just be like, you're focusing on big wins, bringing more value to people, creating more wealth, and putting it into your money machine, if you will, right? So there's two sides of the equation: add more value and put more money into the money machine. And the more money you put in the money machine, the faster it grows, and the quicker you have critical mass, if you will, that can help you retire after a certain age, whatever that be. And if you put more in the front end, more will come at the back end and compounds, and you'll be in a place where you'll be in really good shape at a very young age. So if you want to be a rich 20-something, start early and you'll be a rich 20-something, right? But most people they have this idea of, I got to go after the next shiny object. I got to read the next book. I've got to do the next thing. I've got to invest in this next security or this next company or whatever it is they're doing, right? And they're losing sight of the very tried and true principles. I mean, money is meant to work for you. That's what it's there for, right? And a lot of people are working for their money. And that's fine for a time, but eventually you want it to work for you. You want to create enough of it so that it can take care of you as you get older. If something happens to your family, it's much easier to write a check to solve a problem than do anything else, right? And most problems can be solved by writing a check.
That's true. That's true.
If God forbid, one of your family members got cancer and they needed some experimental treatment that only cash could buy, well, guess what? 95% of the population is shit out of luck right off the bat. Yeah, I bet it's closer to 99. That's sad.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of very wealthy people. I'm blessed to have an amazing network of people, mentors and friends that I've cultivated over many years, which is, probably your greatest asset is your tribe. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of these people can take care of people, whether it's public or flashy or not. They can write a check to solve most of their problems of people they love. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think
that's the whole point to all this. That's the whole point.
Yeah. And you can't help anybody until you help yourself. If your cup is not full, forget helping anybody else. So you got to find that line between being a miser and hoarding all your money and being a martyr. And that's what I always say to people. It's a really interesting line to walk, and it's a very difficult line to walk, but I feel like the more you give in life, the more you receive. But the more you give, also you have to make sure you're also receiving, because that's abundance, right? Giving and receiving in abundance is abundance, not just giving, not just receiving. So finding that balance is, I think, the ultimate wealth creation strategy, because you're going to not only make yourself wealthy, but you're going to make everybody you come in contact with wealthy. And wealth can be just giving people your presence, giving people your time, giving them a good solid piece of advice, or just helping them through a crisis. It doesn't have to be always money related. It doesn't have to always be some, grandiose thing. It could just be, I'm here with you right now, having a conversation.
I'm feeling very wealthy to be here.
Yeah, I feel wealthy just being in this room right now and being able to share my gift.
Just break it down for some, because one of the things that I realize, coming from a family who's not, so my family are mostly professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers.
Sure.
But
skilled producers.
And so generally speaking, we've done well in terms of the fact that we're, I was born into solid middle class. But there's a big difference between having skilled producers and having people who are financially intelligent.
Yes.
And, look, my mom doesn't watch my podcast anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't matter.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. No, but I mean, there's just a big difference. I read a book a few years ago. It was a simple book. I think it was Richest Man in Babylon.
That's a great book.
It's a very simple book.
Timeless advice.
And one of the pieces of advice in the book is that you view money as a seed and not your food.
Yes.
Right? And so money it works for you to grow and to produce other things. But if you keep consuming it, you'll have none of it. You have to plant it and let it grow. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think that the mentality that a lot of average Americans have is make more money, spend it on the things you need. Make more money, spend it on the things you need. If you need something, just make more of it. Which and then our culture perpetuates that, because you have this whole rapper lifestyle that especially a lot of young people are into, or you have just the flashy celebrity thing where it's I'm just going to get rich, but you don't just get rich.
Yeah, and I think the issue comes with not creating more. Creating more is great.
Right.
But also spending at the same rate. Like Floyd Money Mayweather walking around with a briefcase full of cash all the time to make an emergency deposit at Louis Vuitton.
I think I'm going to put him on an anomaly way out of the spectrum scale, just because I think he probably could spend it as fast.
He does.
I think he's not going to go broke.
He'll drop it. Yeah, I mean, he's getting smarter about it. But there was a time there he would fight, he would spend, he would fight, he would spend. I mean, Mike Tyson's another great example. Somebody who's made $500 million in his career has nothing to show for it.
Hasn't Floyd made more than that, though?
Probably at this stage. But at one point, he was the richest boxer ever to live.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I think it helps to talk, just so you're not just listening to somebody who doesn't know. I've been there, guys. I've been a hedge fund manager. I've managed my own money. I've managed other people's money. My hedge fund, Hart Capital, did 106%. That's more than double return. in 2013 in a year when 25% was the upside. So I quadrupled the S&P return that year. And I get it. Like, I've managed money for 100 millionaires. I've helped them with their businesses. I've helped increase sales. I've doing a lot of things. And that's my gift, is I can take a step back and say, all right, as an entrepreneur, where can I put the resources where they'll yield the most, and not just that. So again, this is just talking from experience. It's a long game, but you can win it if you're just smart about doing the same things over and over again. It's boring as shit, but chasing shiny objects will get you hurt, right? Yeah. And you can have risk in your portfolio, but it's got to be balanced by things that are safe, secure, and relative risk. I use like a scale. Like, okay, is this a 1 on the risk scale, or is this a 10 on the risk scale? And my options trading activities in my hedge fund were like a 9. They were extremely risky. The only way I could get more risky was taking crazy naked options and putting them out on the open market and letting people, you have unlimited downside essentially. And that would be one way to make it riskier, but for the most part, it was highly risk. And I would tell people, like, if you're going to invest money in this fund, it should be risk capital only. You should be able to lose. You can afford to lose all this money, you know, and we might hit a freaking grand slam, which we did, but at the same time, we could have lost it all. So people were comfortable with that. They felt that the risk was worth the reward, and vice versa. But most people are that risky just day to day, right? They're buying things that have no intrinsic value. Interesting. They're spending money on short-term, kind of pleasures, or maybe short-term, I feel good about this purchase, but they're not really setting themselves up for having assets. And all an asset is something that puts money in your pocket on a consistent basis. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket on a consistent basis. That's the simplest way we can describe it, right? And most people look at their house as an asset, but they're actually paying out every month as a result of having that house. Their car is not an asset. You pay out every single month. Now, if you take that house and you put a tenant in it and it brings in money, now it's an asset above your expenses. Now it's an asset. But if you put, a car out there, on what's that flight car that people rent their cars now, and you can make a little income off it, it could be an asset. Yeah. I mean, it's not a great example. It's not a great example, but you kind of get the idea. From you, I'm just saying in general, like, cars just generally never are an asset. Right. They're never an asset on your balance sheet. Right. So if you're going to look at at building assets as the strategy in order to create wealth over the long term, that's a money spitting box. That box will create money for you every single month or quarter or whatever it is. And as a function of that income, you can continue to invest at an accelerated rate, right? A snowflake becomes a snowball, becomes an avalanche, and you can create more time for yourself ultimately, because you're not always having to earn every single time you want to go out and create money. So it's really earning more and building assets. Well, okay, so break it down, because I think a lot of people get intimidated by talking about, oh, well, this was risk capital. This is, sure, I quadrupled the S&P. People are like, I don't even know, like, I'm trying to get my bank account straight. Yeah. Like, and there's different levels too. Break it down for a very beginner. I consider myself an entry level investor. I have, I have a Schwab account with some automatic investments going, but I'm very, very basic. Yeah. Break it down even before that level. Like, let's say you're working at a job with an average salary, you're making $40,000 a year, and you're in your mid 20s, early 30s, and you already feel the internal pressure that you should have started, but you don't know what to do. The books are kind of confusing. You don't know. You don't have any friends like Brad you can call up and be like, just help me, because everyone is at your level. And I've actually anticipated this, believe it or not. I've created a lot of resources for people, which I think are amazing. I mean, I'll be emailing those out. Yes, absolutely. We're going to email those out. And also you can check them out right now at makemoremarbles.com/rich. RICH. That's makemoremarbles.com/rich. And you can look at all the stuff that I've had there. And I'll go over what they are. But the one resource in particular that I think is really helpful, there's a book that came out by, another person I've studied quite a bit. My girlfriend actually works for him. His name is Tony Robbins. And who's that? Yeah, you never heard of him, right? Never heard of him. He's been the premier peak performance coach for the United States for 40 years now. Tony's amazing. He's a national treasure. If you haven't checked out his stuff, I highly recommend it. Don't do what I did and keep the book on your shelf for 10 years and never read it. I just bought that after your recommendation. Well, you weren't the only recommendation. You were like the 5th person to recommend it. Yeah, it's a great book. I just bought it. And it's not great because Tony's great. Tony's awesome, and he's amassed $500 million in his lifetime. But it's also great because he has access to the best financial minds on the planet currently living, and some that have already passed away. So he took all of their knowledge and put it in this book as well. You know what I noticed though? I bought his book and I'm like, you know what? While I'm at it, I'll just buy his other books, because I had Awaken the Giant Within, or a couple of other ones, like a dog bit one up, and I just lost another one. So I'm gonna rebuy all his copies. That new fucking book has. They either took his old picture and put it on the new book, or took his new picture and put it on the old book. Because I'm like, these are the same picture. Yeah. Wait a minute. This is bullshit. Tony, you're either much younger in this picture or much older in that picture. Which one is it? Yeah, he got started so young too. He was like 17 when he started public speaking. That's crazy. He was in his 20s and he was doing he was on Oprah, like sliding across the floor, fixing people's tarantula phobias. Yep. Yeah, he's had a long career.
Like, do you think there's like an intrinsic value in like reading something over watching it?
I think both are great, but I just like to break it down for people. You know, like this is what I took as the main takeaways, and this is my wheelhouse, and like my friends and mastermind partners. Actually, this is what, are we live?
Yeah. Well,
hey, so yeah, we're back. we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. The camera overheated, but we're back, and welcome. We were talking about Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game, which I think is a great resource for people to check out. But if you don't want to read a 650-page book, which I did in 2 sittings because I'm a little bit manic about it.
2 hour-long sittings?
Not 2 hours, but I basically read it in probably 10 hours or so, just kind of sitting.
That's Harry Potter speed, man.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And this is a dense book. I mean, it's a lot of financial stuff, and it's not like inaccessible to the average person. It's pretty dense, right?
Well, it should be written for an average person.
Yeah,
you think
absolutely.
That's his market, right?
Yeah, and I believe that the average person will get a lot of value out of something like that. And there's a lot of really great advice on building and creating wealth and managing as well. But what I did is I took it one step further. So I do this with my mastermind, which I set a link to in that 20-something, maplemorals.com/rich as well, is I always break down, especially things that are in my kind of wheelhouse, if you will, like finance and real estate and a couple others. I break them down for people and then share them with my network. So I don't just recommend a book, but I'll actually take and I'll make like a slideshow and I'll actually present the book.
Yeah, that's super useful.
So like you could do a PDF too. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. But for me, I really like video as a medium and podcasting as a medium and kind of doing these screen shares as a medium. So I basically put the slides that I put together for this book and I created one. And you guys actually have a link to that if you sign up for the masterminding portion. So you'll get Delina's top 10 purpose tips. She's Tony Robbins actually his top purpose coach. Like she coaches people on what's your purpose in life, how can you add more value. So you'll get that video. You'll get the one where I break down his book, which is really awesome. That's all free. You can check that out. And you'll also, if you sign up, get a really cool webinar I put together about some of the things I've learned, which just went live. It's all brand new content. So you check out that link and that's all there. You can sign up for both of those. Really awesome. So that will give you guys more of a breakdown. But just to give you a few of the high points, I think it's really important, as I mentioned before, to have, I'm adding more value over here. That's half the equation. I'm earning more money, and your income is unlimited, guys. I don't like the advice that people give about save all this money by cutting out lattes. If you like lattes, make more money and then buy your damn lattes. I'm not saying spend frivolously, but don't try to nitpick every dollar, because that's going to make you crazy. It's going to waste your time. And ultimately, it's not going to make you put energy, focus, time, energy, and attention into creating more wealth, right? And adding more value on a larger scale.
So how do you do that? Do you get a raise? You start a side business? What do you do to make more money?
It could be any number of things, right? So adding more value could be to the current employer that you have, so that you get a raise, that you consistently get bonuses, so that you maybe have a piece of the upside in the business, because you're looking at this business not as a job, but as something that you can continually add value
like
to.
An
that
intrapreneur.
might be,
that's a whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Intrapreneur. That's a great term. I've never heard that before. If you just coined it, I think you should.
I didn't, but it's the idea of having a job, but treating it as your startup.
Yeah.
Like, what can I do to add value to this company?
And all that really is just picking your head up from your desk every so often and saying, hey, what are the problems that my boss has? And a business really just breaks down to 4 things, right? It breaks down to leads, sales, cash flow, and value delivery of some type.
Every business,
right? It breaks down those 4 things. You have 3 of those things, you have a hobby. So if you're missing one, you better fix it.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have leads, you obviously have nobody to market to. Leads, sales, cash flow, and value delivery of some kind. It could be a product, a service, whatever. So you go into your business and you say, all right, well, how can we get more leads? Or how can we close more sales? Or how could we, increase our cash flow or decrease our costs? That's kind of like the 2 pieces of cash flow, right? Or, how can we deliver more value so that we can add, more cash to the bottom line? Because again, profit is a theory, is an accounting term, but cash in the bank is what you can spend and therefore grow your business. So,
well, guys, and I want to point out and just highlight what you're saying here. You're talking about solving problems. Mm-hmm. This is an issue that especially a lot of younger people have when they're in their either first or second career, when they're just getting their feet wet with making a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. Or even starting your own business, like the only thing you need to do is figure out how to solve problems.
Yes. You
need to become a problem solver. And if you go to work every day and you just do what you're told and you're solving the problems that people put on your plate, that's great. But what's really going to separate you from the pack, whether it's starting your own thing or working for someone else, is like identifying problems that no one's asking you to solve.
Yes.
Fixing those, and then not even always taking credit for it. Just letting other people see that, You solve the problem.
Yeah, this guy sees things coming. He sees problems as they arise, and he fixes them.
Yeah.
In an efficient way without creating too much hullabaloo, not using a ton of resources, not going after stuff that's like low. Just go after the low hanging fruit. If it's not if it's not high priority, don't go after it. But if you see a problem or a way to do things better, just think of this: a business is really just a collection of systems that add value to somebody.
Yeah.
Right. So you can either make more efficient, or automate, or streamline, or delegate, or whatever you have to do to make things happen more efficiently to add value to the customers and bring cash into the business, right? And any way you do that is a boon to the business. It's good for the business. And therefore, if you're an employee of that business, or more likely a shareholder, once you start showing how much value you can add, you can negotiate that as well. And again, guys, this is Ramit, so I'm going to steal it for a second. You don't get what you deserve or what you think you're worth. You get what you negotiate.
Yeah.
That is a really important thing to understand, is these people aren't just going to hand you more money because you said, I solved all these problems. You can't whine about it. You can't bitch about it. You just got to go to the negotiating table and say, hey, listen, I've done X, Y, and Z. I've added this much to the bottom line, and be specific. This is the value I've added to this business. Can you give me a raise based on that?
Or better yet, and this is also Ramit's, basically announce that these are the changes I'm going to make. These are the changes I'm going to make. These are the problems I'm going to solve. And this is the timeline I'm going to do it in. Do it in that timeline, and then come back and say, I told you I was going to do that.
Right. Right. Exactly. And they could be
That's what Conor McGregor just did.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor just said, do you watch the UFC?
No, go for it.
So Conor McGregor is this Irish fighter. He's this bad boy, and people are hating on him because he's saying, I'm going to come into the UFC and I'm going to beat you, and you, and I'm going to take that fucking belt. And he just did it. He knocked them all fucking down. The last guy, he knocked out with one punch in 13 seconds, and he said, give me that fucking belt.
Wow.
And
that's a man who knew his what and why and how.
People are mad at him, but he was calling his fights. He's saying, this is what I'm going to do. And he's like, and I'm not only going to knock out him, I'm going to go up one weight class. I'm going to take that belt and hold both belts.
Nice.
And I'm not giving up this first belt. Give it to me.
I love
That's
it.
what you got to do. You got to call it out, do it, and then say, give me my reward.
There's nothing wrong with calling your shot. There's nothing wrong with being behind the scenes either. But again, if you had the best solution and nobody knows about it, or nobody knows you did it, guess what? It's really hard to take credit for it.
Yeah. Well, so this is what I want to impart to you guys. It's like, look, solve problems. Doesn't matter if you're solving a problem and starting your own business, or solving a problem within the business you're already working for. Yep. That's how you make more money, and then that's how we start transitioning into building wealth. So what happens after you make more money?
Right. So that's kind of be the intrapreneur. Being an entrepreneur is just the same thing, except you're doing it on a larger scale, and
it's way more stressful.
Yeah, it's a little more stressful. It's a little more risk.
Way more stressful.
But if you win, then the rewards are bigger too, right? True. So it's all levels of risk. Life is really a game of managing risk. So now once you've created more value and you've earned more money, then it's funneling it into what I call your money machine, if you will. Right, and that's been used by everybody. So
that's my girlfriend. She's my money machine.
Yeah, she's your money machine, exactly. So when you give
things, you say spending machine or money machine?
Money machine. That's not spending machine. No, that's another machine. That might be part of your liability category. But so yeah, your money machine is just basically the assets that you're going to put money into that are going to grow and in turn create more income and grow the pot faster, right? So if you were to create a money machine, you'd want to have a basic strategy where it's like, I'm going to put money here no matter what every month, and that's where it starts. And then you're going to have satellite strategies, right? So you have your core, and then you have your satellites. And your satellites could be anything like real estate, they could be stocks, they could be bonds, they could be senior housing, they could be annuities, they could be any number of things. I could go into 500 different asset classes that you could technically put money into. And you just want to keep the balance such as that you don't have too much exposure in any one thing, right? Diversification, as Warren Buffett says, and I believe Ben Graham also said, is a free lunch.
Yeah.
So you want to diversify in order to not have your risk out of balance. So if one thing takes a dive, right, because some asset classes carry with them risk of loss, then you're still okay because your other asset classes will perform in lieu of that. Does that make sense?
What's the core bucket that you should start putting your money in first?
So for me, I've been using Ray Dalio's strategy, which is really awesome. I had to make a shift between, like, I was an active trader and I was going out and trying to make big trades and, up 50 grand, 100 grand in a day, down 50, 100 grand in a day. Sometimes, we had one month where we made like $1 million, $1,040,000 between my partners and I. It was a really good month. But that, it comes with it a lot of ups and downs. So now I'm more interested in creating risk balance. Right. So my core strategy is actually Ray Dalio's core strategy. And I use some derivatives, but mostly you could do this with equities or ETFs or index funds like Vanguard. And I actually go through this in that video I mentioned. You can check it out. And it's from Tony's book as well. And Ray just lays out basically 4 seasons. right? 4 financial seasons. He calls it the all-weather strategy. And in each of these seasons, you're balancing out the risk. So you have a certain percentage of stocks, a certain percentage of bonds, a certain percentage of commodities, on. And the breakdowns are all in the video and in the book. That you allocate to balance your risk, so that no matter what's happening in the global marketplace, one of those asset classes is going to perform. And no matter what's happening, if there's a crash or a crisis, the downside is limited, right? So I think they back tested this particular strategy over 40 years. The average was about 8% a year, which is solid, right? That's a decent amount of return for the risk you're putting on the table. And the worst year was like negative 4%.
Yeah.
And that was like 2008. So when people were losing half of their money, this thing was down 4% because the risk was balanced between bonds and gold and all these different asset classes to create downside protection. So that's where I start, because it's a pretty safe place to put your money. And then I'll start playing around with things like Costa Rican real estate. That'll go into a little bucket. Or I'll play around with things like annuities, which is relatively low. Because again, it's not so much about how much you can gain, but about how much you can not lose.
Right. That's an interesting mindset.
Right.
Okay.
I'm more interested in not losing than I am in winning. Right. So my 8% or whatever doesn't seem like a lot, but compounded over 30 years is millions and millions of dollars. Right. Is several thousand percentage points after a while.
So
because
talk
every
to
year.
us about speed a little bit, though. Like how fast it. I think a lot of people are impatient.
Yeah. And if you're impatient, you set up your money machine and then you just focus on putting more input into it. Right? Because the faster you grow your money machine, there's plenty of calculators available to do this. The faster you're putting that in and you do the math and compound it, the faster you'll grow, right? So if you're impatient, go out and find ways to add more value, solve bigger problems, and put more money into the front of that thing. But having your money machine static and solid and set up in a way that you're managing the risk across your whole portfolio of all different asset classes is the best way to have your money work for you without having to put a microsecond of thought into it. You set it up once, you check on it, rebalance it every 6 months or a year, and you're done. Right? And you wake up in 10 years and you've been pumping money into this thing, and then you're wealthy.
What I found is that, first of all, as long as you have a dedicated investment schedule, obviously the more you put in, the more you're going to get out with a consistent return.
Right. It doesn't have to be a ton.
But I think it's more important to just be consistent.
Yeah. And just starting is the key, right? If it's $100 a month, right? Whatever it is, start.
Right.
Because then you'll get comfortable with making decisions and automating it, so that when it becomes $10,000 a month or $20,000 or $100,000 a month or whatever your income gets to, it's the same theory, right? It doesn't matter if it's $1 or $1 million. You're going to be putting into this money machine to grow, and that's not your money to touch. That's future Brad money. That's future Daniel money. That's money like the richest man in Babylon that he's tithing to his future self.
Yeah.
And I think 10% is a great place to start.
That's great.
Like they mentioned in the book, I do 25 personally because I want to get there faster. And I'm always focusing on ways to make more money. So the average millionaire, and I don't define a millionaire as just having $1 million in assets, the average millionaire has 7 different income streams.
That was one of my posts on Instagram, just so you know.
Yeah. It's awesome, right?
I didn't know if that was actually true. It just seemed like it's true. It seemed pretty accurate.
Absolutely. Like all the millionaires I know have multiple income streams. They have books, they have podcasts, they have, coaching services, which I also offer as well. And so does Delina, my girlfriend. She's a top Tony Robbins coach. She's a PA. I'm a real estate guy. I'm always creating online courses and cool stuff for people. Like I'm always trying to find ways to add more value and in turn bring in more leads, bring in more sales, bring in more cash flow, and deliver more value. Does that make sense?
What I want you guys to do is I want you to open your minds up, especially if you're at a job right now, whether you like the job or not. I want you to open your mind up to think, okay, let's kind of reverse engineer it. Let's say I wanted to invest 10%. I'm starting off with 10% of my monthly income into my business, so I guess 10% annually, just 10% period.
Yeah, I think monthly is a good way to chunk it down.
Yeah, monthly is a good way to think about it. But the way I would think about it is if you're like, 10%, that might be, that could be $500. That's a lot for me. How do I replace that income? We'll really start to actively think about it. Okay, I need $500 extra to invest that I'm going to take from my primary income and put into this bucket so that I can grow. Put into my money machine.
Yep.
So then, where does the extra money come from? Does it come from me negotiating a raise at work? Does it come from me starting a little side hustle? It's just a side business.
Could be anything.
It could be anything.
$500 is relatively easy.
It's relatively easy to come by if you're actually being creative with it.
Sure.
So many of us are stagnant in our approach. So many of us are unwilling to try something if it's not handed to us.
Right.
So we just sit there for years. We say, oh, well, I'll ask for a raise next year. I'll make sure, I'll get to that later. I'll read that book, or I can't get started until I read all 650 pages of Tony Robbins' book that I didn't read all the pages, so I can't start because I don't know anything.
Right. And you got enough information right here based on what we're talking about just to get started, right? You can open an E-Trade account. It's a relatively low minimum, or a TD Ameritrade. It doesn't matter. I don't have any affiliation
I'm with
any
Schwab, and Schwab I think is a $500 minimum investment.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not difficult.
And then from there, you can start to look at different ETFs.
They
different
pull it
index
automatically
funds.
from your bank account. You don't have to do anything.
Right. And once you automate this thing, it's done.
Yeah.
You just say, okay, this is my 10% for the month. It goes there. It's automated. I don't have to think about it. And that number grows over time. So you just go back to work, focus on creating more income, solving more problems. I mean, it could be anything, guys. You could be doing what you're doing right now for your company and just hop on Upwork, which used to be Elance and Odessa, but they went together, and just put an ad out. I do X, Y, and Z. And this is the work I've delivered, and these are some of my client testimonials, and bam, you got a second source of income.
You're speaking my language, man. One of the best posts I ever wrote, and one of the ones that went viral was how I made $24K on Elance in a month. And it was just, and all I was doing, this is crazy, I had a web design firm, but I'm not a good web designer, so I just pitched web design services, and then when I sold them, I got someone from India or Asia to do the website for me, and I just collected the difference.
And that's the best part, guys. You don't have to use your own time. You have to create leverage.
Yeah.
Leverage is the key. Do you think Warren Buffett is out there running all these companies that he manages? Of course not. He owns shares in the company.
Richard Branson is out there?
No, he doesn't run 400 companies. That would be insane.
He's like an ultra CEO of many other CEOs.
Yeah, he has the same 24 hours in a day. He has the same 168 hours in a week. The reason he's Richard Branson is because he's found creative ways to empower people and leverage their efforts to the greater good, which is his companies. And he has a hierarchy. He has he has sales, he has marketing, he has different divisions that are all talented at one particular thing. And by just removing yourself from the equation, things will actually grow faster.
Yeah.
You remove the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And you create systems around everything. And it takes time, but you start out with one thing. If you can outsource one thing, you can outsource a million things. But you just got to get comfortable with releasing the reins. And it's actually better for you because there's only so many things that you're going to be good at, right? At the end of the day, you have a piece of the puzzle. And I like to say there's this grand mosaic of life. And a mosaic is just a lot of small points of light or pictures that create a larger image, right? So if you have one piece of this puzzle and you're great at this one thing, you should do that one thing at a world-class level and get the best at it you could possibly be. And then just by the virtue of being the best in the world at that one thing, you will begin to attract other A players, world-class people at other things.
It's true.
And then you can all go together and join forces to create whatever type of value. And if you try to do it all on your own, you're setting yourself up to fail. There's very few people that can do it all on their own. I can't name one billionaire that's done it all on their own.
This is another good point, too, to touch on, especially because we both have pretty good networks.
Sure.
And one of the things people ask me a lot, or I think that they think but they don't say, is, well, yeah, but you're only able to do that because you know this person, and that person.
Right. How do you think we got to know this people?
Right, because I just got really good at something.
Yeah.
And then, like, we met through Chris.
Yep.
Right? And you and I both know Charlie.
Yep.
And all the people involved that we were just talking about are people who are just really good at something.
Yeah.
And they come together because they have mutual interests based on doing great work in whatever their line of work is.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what the key is. If you don't want to put a lot of effort into your daily life and you remain a cog, then you're not going to stand out and people won't say, hey, there's something different about that person.
Yeah.
And no one's going to call you up to the big leagues. You have to like force your way up there.
Sure.
You know, if you're in the minor leagues in baseball, the only way you get to the majors is by being fucking great at it.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
they're not like, he looks pretty good. I'll give him a chance on like the Reds or something.
And the easiest thing to do is to look at somebody and say, well, they have X, Y, and Z, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
But guess what? When they started, they sucked.
Yeah.
When I started, I sucked. I lost lots of money for lots of years before I figured out how to trade on the open markets. And
they don't even do it at your level. That's a different level.
And you don't need to go down the rabbit hole like I did, guys. And trust me, it's probably not the best idea for most people. I don't think, less than 1/10% ever need to learn what I know about derivatives and options and all that crap. But having a basic understanding of finance and how to diversify and how to create, relatively low risk portfolios that will grow over time without having to think about it too hard is a skill set that everybody should have.
We're not talking Wolf of Wall Street here. We're talking basic knowledge.
Basic financial knowledge. And this is what they should be teaching in school, but they're just not because, again, the incentives are all out of whack. And the people that are teaching honestly don't know themselves.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, and I remember I didn't even learn about, I mean, I heard about it, but like I didn't even really get taught it in a formal way, compound interest, until probably sophomore, junior year of high school, which is way too late.
Like one of the laws of the universe that will make or break your life, right?
Yeah.
If you have money working for you consistently over the course of, your 20s and 30s, you'll be retired by 40, 45 tops, even if you don't make a lot.
Yeah.
That's
crazy. And so I think, if you could, besides signing up at your link, which I will email out and we'll repeat again and we'll put it across the screen, what's the number one thing a person watching this, what's the number one action they can take today to get started on the path to financial mastery?
You have to make a decision.
Whoa.
You have to make a decision. You have to decide right now that you are going to take this seriously because your future depends on it, because it does.
Do you want to hear something cool? Every morning I do affirmations, and one of my affirmations is for financial mastery. And I know it sounds kooky and woo-woo and whatever, but
no, shit works.
Yeah,
You're programming your subconscious mind to create the result you want.
Yeah, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you repeat something to yourself, after a while, no matter how silly you thought it was at the beginning, you're like, oh, I believe that now.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you listen to a song over and over again and you can't stop thinking of the lyrics, same thing. So I haven't shared this with anybody yet. Here is I have different affirmations. One is for my book launch that I'm working on. One is for,
I've got a whole morning ritual I could lay on you guys too. Yeah.
Here's my wealth and financial affirmation. I look in the mirror when I'm saying this, and I really mean it. And I say it 3 to 5 times. I said, I'm a financial master. I'm 30 years old and have a personal net worth of over $10 million with $1 million in the bank, just sitting there chilling. I'm 100% debt free and my business is caught up on its taxes. I'm in such a rock solid place financially that I can withstand any setback, and I can make decisions based upon what makes me truly happy, not what I have to do. I've overcome all the average money mindsets of my upbringing, and I've become extremely well educated in the financial marketplace, and I actually enjoy being one of the smartest people in the room when it comes to finance. I'm able to comprehend and navigate the investment space in ways that I never thought imaginable before, and can comprehend them far above the level of any of my family or friends. I have a growing portfolio that includes mutual funds, stocks, real estate, and other high yield investments.
I love that. Like, you got to send that to me. That's
awesome.
I'll
send it to you. It's super detailed though. Like the thing about affirmations, you have to be pretty detailed.
Yeah.
So that
and
you can
goals
really,
too.
Yeah.
Goals have to be specific or else you'll never hit them. And also you create this kind of like endless loop for your brain too. If you have a goal, it's like, I want to have $20 million. All right, that's fine. But do you really need 20 million?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like 5 or 10 that would actually get you your goals. You have to actually break it down, figure out what would it take in your money machine to create a low risk rate of return that would actually give you that type of income. And for most people, it's usually half to a third of what they think it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just because we see a lot of stuff on TV and we assume that we need to be like a Kardashian to have.
But if you make it winnable, if you make the game winnable, if there's a number in mind, then it's easier to hit.
For sure.
Because then your brain looks, well, how could I make an extra $100,000, or how could I make an extra $1 million? Like there's ways to do it. People make that kind of money all the time.
Yeah, the whole idea about to-do lists is you want to be able to check something off.
Absolutely.
You don't want to have a to-do list that never gets done.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about your morning routine.
So my morning routine, I've actually shifted my day around considerably, both in the morning and the afternoon, or in the evening rather. So I'm still a giver and I love giving value and I love adding value. But again, it's walking that line between miser and martyr. So for a long time, actually my income and my time suffered because I was basically putting out more than I could possibly take back. And it got to the point where I was like, no more, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore. If my cup's not full, I can't help anybody. So I took a step back and I said, all right, how could I schedule my day to create a day that would, no matter what, and I actually made a whole post about this, create the optimal thing. And what I meant, I'm not saying this exactly right, but it would create the optimal day and it would set up so that it was basically like a pyramid structure. So I had the base of the pyramid that was solid and locked in every single day. And then I would move on to the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. And I chose 3-hour blocks, but you could do however you want. My first 3-hour block from like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is all getting in peak state, peak emotional state for the day, ready to rock. I don't just take for granted that I'm going to wake up feeling amazing.
Yeah.
I spend that time to really work out, to prime, to breathe, to meditate, to do my incantations, to jump around on a trampoline, to listen to good music, whatever it is I need to do to get myself into that peak state. And that can take anywhere from 20 minutes, if I'm in a rush, all the way up to 3 hours if I'm really just taking my time going to the gym, doing different things. I like to swim. I like to, work out, calisthenics, weights, what have you. So that's the first phase. And then no matter what happens for the rest of the day, if I get interrupted, guess what? I've already worked out. I've already set up my day for success.
Yep.
And by a function of doing that, you're in a better state. Therefore, you can attack problems more quickly. You can get through your day more efficiently. You can knock off items on your to-do list. You understand things at a high level just as a function of engaging bigger parts of your brain and oxygenating your body, and not just, setting yourself up for whatever may come that day. So you're not in response mode. You're not in reaction mode to the day.
I hate waking up and immediately having to answer a text or a phone call. It's like, I haven't even gotten to,
Yeah, my phone is off. My phone is on airplane mode or off.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty of having it on do not disturb mode sometimes all day. People are like, I've been trying to call you. I'm like,
absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
And if you can't do it now and you're waking up too late, get up earlier.
Yeah.
I get up at 6 a.m. for a reason, because I want to set up my day to be successful every day.
Same.
And I don't want to waste any day. I don't care if it's Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't have days off. I just do what I got to do every day. And
Now,
that's a habit I've built up. That's a habit I've built up over 10 years of being an entrepreneur, because I don't get days off like an employee might get days off. Because when my brain doesn't shut off when I leave the office. My brain is always going, thinking of new and better ways that I can improve my current situation, help more people, bring my message to more people. I've got big life goals. I want to create food, energy, water, and shelter for every human being on the planet Earth by the time I die, in a sustainable way for all humanity. And we want to get off this planet too, so there's no single point of failure in the human race, which is the planet Earth right now. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. But if I'm going to get there, I got to be wealthy, healthy. I got to be a speaker. I got to learn the skills I need to learn. I got to network with the people I need to network with. I got to be in, the places that are going to allow me to leverage the things that I need to get that done. And I feel like there's a lot of people with that goal, so I need to meet them as well, right? And I need to create leaders that help me to do that. So that's minute one, get out of bed. I'm pumped. I'm getting that into my brain, and I'm reading my goals and, other goals as well. And then finally, I take the top 3 things I have to get done that day that are actually going to move the ball forward. And these are usually the scariest things. And I borrowed this from a mentor of mine, a guy named Tim Ferriss. Tim and I aren't best friends. We don't play golf every weekend, but I did spend 10 days with him in Africa, in Kenya. I got malaria on that trip and met Charlie, and there's a whole lot of fun stuff around that story. And I tell more about that if you sign up for the mastermind in the first email you guys get with all the bonus content. So you can check that out. But Tim's greatest advice is take an index card, write down 2 to 3 things on it tops. And those are your action items for the day. So I spend those 3 hours after I'm primed and ready to go, getting those things, the ball moving forward stuff. I'm moving the ball forward down the field in a way that's actually going to impact my life, my bottom line, the people around me, and create more value than ever I have before.
I want to say 2 things because I think they're really important to note. One, guys, this is not the first time on the show we've had someone come on and really talk about their morning ritual, their morning routine, and having a very small amount of priorities for the day. If you watched our podcast with Stephen Mayer, Agent Stephen, a few episodes back, multi-millionaire, and he has a very similar setup for his day. You're hearing these things for a reason. Because it works. There's a reason. And I'm sure that, I'm sure that Stephen won't be the last time you hear that. He's not going to be the last time you hear this. You're going to keep hearing this, and there's going to be a reason why you do. So don't overlook that anymore. Really start to think critically about how you set up your day, how you set up your life, and how you utilize your energy. There's a reason why I don't do phone calls before probably at least noon. I think you said the same thing. At least noon. Yeah, at least noon. And not to be a bitch or anything. That's just I know I'm not going to be able to function if I have other people's priorities immediately in my face in the morning.
Right.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is, what was the second? I think that in terms of your priorities, I think that we drastically, we overestimate how many things important people are doing every day. So let's say you only have 2 or 3 priorities. Someone might look at you and be like, oh, well, that's great that you only have 2 or 3 priorities, but I have so many things to do, and I imagine you have a lot of things to do too. How do you get it all done?
I haven't even got to the to-dos yet.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about priorities.
Well, the priority.
I'm just talking about shit that has to get done today, and we'll move the ball forward.
Well, yeah, and I think the takeaway from that, and I want to hear about the to-dos, but the takeaway from that is the reason why you're able to have such a well-defined priority list is because you look at your life and say, what things need to be outsourced?
Yep.
What can someone else help me with?
Yes.
How can I make my life easier so these priorities can actually be a priority and not just, a random collection of things I might or might not get done?
Yeah, and I guess you could add to that, like, leveraging is anything that's low level that you could that somebody else could do just as well as you, and that could be done with recording something or video.
I'll do it for you.
Priorities would just be anything along the lines of something that I can do at the highest level, and I know nobody else could. So that's like writing your book. That's like,
Yeah, exactly.
Networking with high level individuals. That's like, creating a piece of content or a post that's going to go out to your audience. That's, in our world, or maybe that's creating a new system for your business or hiring somebody, whatever is going to really move the ball forward. And then after that, so you got the base of the pyramid, which is getting ready for your day, being in a peak state and being, emotionally ready to handle your day and whatever comes up. And then your top priorities till about noon. And then I'll do calls, coaching calls, conference calls, sales calls, whatever it is I'm doing that day, masterminding. And then, and only then, at the very end of the day, am I going to go out and do errands and shit and just to-dos.
And then you just get what you can done at that point.
And if you can leverage it, you do. I have 8 employees I work with in various different places. And that's not people I pay full-time necessarily, but like contractors, people I pay hourly, my assistant, a virtual assistant who's competent. They don't cost a ton of money, guys. Like $15 an hour, maybe for a decent one that's US based and was born here. They're happy to do it. They're happy to help you to schedule flights and just do all the things that don't need to be done by you. Somebody else could do this who's competent very easily. And it helps you just to focus on the stuff that actually moves the ball forward. So you're not just spending your whole day doing admin work.
You gotta unlock your mind to that possibility, though. I'm sure you read 4-Hour Work Week, and before that
7 times. And I know Tim personally. Yeah, I get it. Yep, absolutely.
And you have, but that for me, that was I think for a lot of people in our generation, that was like a defining experience or a defining moment of, oh shit, there's another way.
Yeah.
And so you can read that book, or you don't have to, but.
Or if you just take this one principle out of it.
Take this one principle out of it.
It would be delegate, eliminate, automate, and liberate. And he actually reorders them in the book. He says eliminate stuff that doesn't matter or doesn't move the ball forward. Automate stuff that can be automated. Delegate stuff that can't be automated, still needs a human to do for whatever reason. And then liberate yourself from the equation completely so that you can scale it and get out of the way.
Yeah, he's a master at scaling.
He's incredible at that.
Yeah.
That's Tim's book, basically. That's one of the biggest takeaways in that book. And the 80-20 principle is the other real big takeaway, like the pre-show principle.
Yep.
20% of what you focus on gives you 80% of the results. So if you take those 2 principles and apply them to your life and business, you'll be heads and shoulders above everybody else.
I think you should write a book.
I am writing a book.
You are?
In fact, yeah. I'm working on a book around the idea of making more marbles. And to give you an idea, guys, if you haven't checked out makemoremarbles.com or the free stuff that I'm giving away here.
It's flashing on the screen now.
Yeah, it's flashing on the screen. Buy now. Check out makemoremarbles.com. makemoremarbles.com/rich is all the resources are going to be in one place, easy for you guys to find. But if you check out my site, the idea of that is creating abundance, right? I want to help people create abundance in every area of their life, not just in finance, which is an important area of life. There's so many other pieces. There's relationships, health, wealth, happiness, travel, experience. It's just giving back, leaving a legacy, contributing beyond yourself. All of these things are abundant. They're not fearful. They're not scarce. They're not competitive. You don't have to be like everybody else. You can create abundance in your own way and add value in your own way. So the Make More Marbles idea is just make more, and if you want to go really esoteric, it's like that sandbox, right, that we all play in, this infinite sandbox of creation. And we put our focus into sand. If you put energy in sand, what does it does? It heats up and creates class. So making more marbles out of your sandbox.
Foot, that's what it does.
Burns your fucking foot, right? But that's kind of where I'm at with Make More Marbles, is like, that's my idea of creating abundance. And, I don't want to just grab for what's already there, grab for all the marbles. I want to make more.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. And I think we're aligned well. I was in the shower the other day, and I realized that one of the core take homes of Rich20 is just to make entrepreneurship and a better lifestyle more accessible. Because I feel like we put it on this pedestal because of the way that media is, the way that celebrity is, and the way we've really celebritized entrepreneurship now.
Absolutely.
To the point where we look at someone like Tim Ferriss and we think that's not possible for me.
Right.
And we've really got it wrong.
And it's not possible to be exactly like Tim Ferriss, because only Tim Ferriss is Tim Ferriss.
And look,
but you can do a lot of the same things he's done.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the thing is, like, a lot of people ask me, to give them advice or more insight into how I started a couple of different businesses of my own, and I'll give them my advice, and I'll help them. I'll tell them what I've done, what's worked. But guys, look, and I'll say this again and again. I've already started my business. I've already done it my way. So if you were to copy my exact same thing, it may or may not work for you.
Right.
I tell my Joseph Campbell hero's journey is about me coming from the restaurant and then opening up my test prep business and scaling that to 100K, and then the next one.
Sure.
It was all great. If you tried that, a lot of it's about timing and who you are and what skills and resources you have. But the principle of thinking outside the box and saying, look, I want more from my life.
Or there is no box.
Yeah. Or there is no, well, yeah. Whoa.
Hey, whoa, esoteric. Oh,
no,
shit.
I want to go outside of it, but I want there to be a box, mister.
That's safety and comfort talking.
I need to say, because I have to go back in one day. But the whole idea that like if you want a better life, it's possible for you. Like, sometimes I feel bad because I feel like, I'm speaking exclusively about like this American lifestyle, this Western lifestyle. And maybe if you were born in Sudan as a woman right now, we don't have all the same resources that we might have. But like, generally speaking, if you're watching this podcast, if you have access to iTunes, you can fucking change your life.
Yeah.
So,
well, the information is certainly
the information's out there. Like, there's no excuse anymore. If you have the internet, it's over.
Right. And that freedom piece is changing rapidly.
Yeah. That gap has been closed.
More internet means more ubiquitous information, means less oppression, means more freedom.
Google and Facebook are about to launch fucking balloons with Wi-Fi in them.
Yes.
Okay?
Which is awesome.
You have
drones.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have no excuse anymore.
Yep.
Now, your excuse could be, I'm tired, or I didn't grow up in a good family, or this happened, that happened. I mean, so I don't want to sound callous, but
but you can also get your health in order.
Right.
You can make that a priority for a while, and that increases your energy and your attention and your focus, which allows you to
get your relationships in order.
Yep.
Whatever it is to make your life better. It's not all about money.
You don't have to start at money either.
Yeah.
Just by the very nature of adding value and creating abundance in one area of life, it'll spill over into other areas of your life.
Yeah. And
I got started out with fitness. That was my first foray.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's worth noting that you could, on the flip side, you could be watching this and say, I'm pretty fine money wise, but there are other things I want to improve.
Absolutely.
And
it certainly makes it easier when you have money.
Oh, for sure. So I think that changing your life and making yourself a better person holistically, you can start at whatever point you want, but eventually the people who have their shit the most together will have their finances in order, they'll have their health in order, they'll have their relationships in order. It's a balancing act, but it can be done.
Yep, absolutely. And the more balance you can create in your life, the more opportunities you have to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And growth and contribution are really the two biggest top needs that everybody eventually should focus on. Once your cup is full, you should look on growing the pie. That should be one thing. And then how can I help more people? Because that's going to help you grow. It's like a virtuous cycle. If you're just going after your need for certainty, or if you're just going, holding on to the fears of who you might become, or you think that rich people are bad, or whatever it is that you have going on.
That's a crazy mindset.
Yeah, it's insane only because it only hurts you. Yeah. It doesn't hurt the rich person.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anybody. It only hurts you because you have decided to shrink as opposed to blossom.
Yeah.
You have decided that your gifts are not valuable when they're the most valuable thing that you could ever add to the world.
Seth Godin said something interesting. He said,
thank you for that book, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's awesome.
You got me 2 books. Now I have to get you 3 next time.
Yeah, it's just going to keep reciprocity,
leveling each other up. He said something interesting. He said that the devil doesn't need any more advocates.
Yes, thank you.
And I wrote a little bit of a longer extended post on that. But like the negative things are obvious. We can always state why something won't work.
Yes.
That's obvious. In fact, that's easy. That's the easy road.
Right. That's the coward's way.
Yeah. Why don't we think
to be the critic?
How can I make this work? Like, how can I make an extra 500?
Right. How can I contribute?
Yeah. How can I contribute? How can I find an hour of my time to start becoming more financially aware?
And if you believe in God, and maybe there's a diverse audience here. I didn't believe in God. I had a very weird religious experience being in Catholic school and not being involved with that for many years.
Yeah.
And then coming back to my faith, and God could be just collective consciousness, infinite intelligence. God doesn't have to be the way that a church says, right? But I believe that everything's connected, and that's what I mean when I say God. But coming back into that, if you are, somebody who believes in God, or whatever you believe in, and you believe that God is a creator, that God created everything, or that God is in everything, and therefore you are created in his image because he created you and you're created in his image, and that's relatively well-known dogma in a lot of churches. If you believe that you are created in his image, then your purpose, as well as his, is to create. It's to create new solutions, new value, new art, new whatever. Right? So by living your purpose, you are creating. And by creating, you're living your purpose. And the virtuous cycle continues.
And that is a great corollary to that is, if you consider yourself a creative person, which many people watching this, many people do, You can't be a creative person without creating something.
Yes.
You can't be productive without producing.
You can't be a side, armchair critic and say, oh, his creation or his attempt at adding value is bullshit, so everything's bullshit.
Look at this guy. He wrote this fucking book. You didn't write a book. Look at this fucking video. It's stupid. Well, you didn't make a video.
So make one better.
Yeah.
If you think it sucks, fix it.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't think it's a good resource, then do it. You think there's 1,000,001 things, but nothing has ever really touched on that one thing. Maybe that's your purpose for now.
Yeah.
And your purpose isn't your life purpose and that's it and that's what it's got to be forever. Your purpose can change, because once you fulfill your purpose, your next purpose is finding your next purpose. It's finding the next way to add value. It's finding the next thing to create. And that's where people get so caught up. It's I have to figure out this job, and I got to figure out this wife or this husband, and I got to figure out this family.
You're not going to figure out your wife.
Right, exactly. It would be insane to think that all this stuff is static, guys. Life is shifting constantly.
Yeah.
Everything is always shifting. Opportunities are shifting, which is why what worked for Daniel or what worked for me won't work for you, because it's an entirely different landscape from the one that we were currently involved in when we were successful.
Yeah.
Right? But if you take a step back and look at the current landscape, you'll see so many opportunities to create value.
Yeah.
If you really start thinking about it as, how can I solve this problem, that problem? And the problems, guess what? Get created by the solutions that were just created. Google created 1,000 new problems that are now being solved by other startups. Facebook created 1,000 new problems.
And that's what a business is. It's solving problems.
Yes.
So, look, and I want to bring this home, guys. I know that in the information space, in the podcasting space, in the motivational space, in the business space, you hear a lot of this information about solving problems, becoming more value. Value is almost an overword used at this point.
Yeah, agreed.
Or overused word. We hear a lot of this stuff, but before you immediately shut your brain off, because I have a tendency to do this too, I say, I've heard that before. Heard that before. Before you do that, think, if I keep hearing this, and they're by people that I respect or people that I want to emulate, maybe it's time to investigate this. Maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to, well, like you said, make a decision.
Yeah.
That's the first step with any of this stuff.
This is now a priority.
Yeah.
No more, never again. Today I make the decision to get my financial life handled.
It's a non-negotiable.
Whether it happens in a year or 10 years, it doesn't matter. As long as you're on the path, you're on the path.
Yeah.
And you can stumble.
Yeah.
You can fall off the path, but you can correct course as well and get back on the path.
I was talking to Ryan Holiday the other day. You know Ryan?
I love Ryan. Yeah, I wrote for his Forbes column.
Yeah, he's a good. Oh, we talked about him.
I've written in Forbes a couple times. I wrote for a 3D printing article, which did really well, and then Ryan's column as well.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and one of the things he says is he says, I make reading in the morning non-negotiable. Yeah. That's how he's reading 250 books a year. Yep. It's just non-negotiable.
Best. He never said this specifically, but the two lessons I learned from Ryan and that I always incorporate in my life is be prolific and be consistent. And never stop being prolific and creating a lot and being consistent, because your talent will have no choice but to increase as a result of being prolific and being consistent. So that Ryan is at 26 years old. He got a $500,000 advance on his last book. He's hobnobbing with all the best-selling authors in the world. He was the top American Apparel marketing guy for a while. I don't know if he still is. He interned under Robert Greene, and his basic talent is that he always is writing. Always, always, always. And he's consistently doing it.
But writers don't make money. Starving artists. Right. Get your shit together.
Attention is the biggest commodity in the world, guys. Not money.
True.
You can make a lot of money if you have attention. You cannot create a lot of attention just because you have money necessarily. Unless you're Paris Hilton.
The Kardashian model.
Yes,
I was going to say, Everyone went out and make your sex tape now.
But even they had money to start.
Yeah, that's a whole nother bag of orange.
And networks and everything else.
Brad, I appreciate you, brother.
Oh, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Check out my site. I put a lot of great resources for you for coaching, for masterminding, for Tony Robbins books, for finding your purpose. All this great stuff is at makemoremarbles.com/rich, RICH. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Daniel. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Appreciate you. All right, guys. That has been our podcast for today. We're going to cue that corny intro music that I like to do, the outro music.
Intro music.
And I'll talk to you guys later.
Take it easy.
You just experienced the Rich20Something podcast.